Ava's life had been a series of hard knocks. Her father, a decorated Army Ranger, was killed in Afghanistan when she was just a little girl. Her mother, Sarah, raised her alone, constantly struggling to make ends meet in their small, worn-down apartment. It was a losing battle. Sarah was frail, her health delicate, and she was often sick for months at a time. Her employers would grow impatient, dropping hints that they couldn't afford a perpetually ill worker. Time and again, after being forced to resign, her mother would lock herself in her room. Her sobs, muffled by a pillow, became the soundtrack to Ava's childhood. A sound of pure, crushing helplessness. Money was a constant, gnawing absence. Sometimes dinner was just a piece of bread dipped in salted olive oil, or plain pasta with nothing on it. At school, she was the worst-dressed kid in her class. Children can be cruel, they say what they see. Ava was an outsider, her poverty and her patched-up clothes a topic of hushed ridicule among the girls whispering at the back of the classroom. She grew accustomed to their mocking laughter, building a wall of silence around her small, lonely world. When Ava turned 14, her mother passed away, finally succumbing to a long illness. Her Aunt Carol, her mother's sister, took her in. But life didn't get better. It got worse. Aunt Carol called her a freeloader and a lazy good-for-nothing, though she herself had no inclination for work or housekeeping. Claudia quickly realized that Ava was old enough to be put to work. The aunt burdened her niece with all the household chores, cooking, cleaning, laundry. She even sent her to the local liquor store to buy cheap wine on credit from her best friend who worked there. When there was no money for wine, she'd send Ava to a neighbor for moonshine. By the end of the month, after paying off their debts, they would be broke again, dipping bread in oil together. Her drunk aunt would then start her usual refrain. "You're such a burden. When are you going to get married and get out of my hair?" Often driving her niece to tears. The store owner, Evelyn, had a son. Carol was fiercely jealous of their family's prosperity. More than once, she would start conversations with Ava about whether she liked Evelyn's son, but the girl would only remain silent. When Ava turned 18, Carol began to relentlessly push her, painting a picture of a comfortable life with Evelyn's son. But she was thinking more about her own well-being than her niece's. If Ava married the store owner's son, surely she wouldn't be forgotten. She could get groceries on an endless tab, maybe even for free. Her own significant debt to Evelyn would be forgiven. But the grown-up Ava, once so submissive, suddenly rebelled. She screamed that she would not be the solution to her aunt's financial problems. She had been pushed too far. One day, after another lecture about marrying for money, Ava couldn't take it anymore. "I'm not going to solve your financial problems," she yelled and stormed out, slamming the door. When she returned, she packed her few belongings. She took a small tin box, a makeshift piggy bank her aunt didn't know about. She had been saving coins for years, ever since she came to live in this house. It should be enough for a room. She also carefully packed her father's medals and his award documents. They were her only memory of him, her talisman. The money was enough not only to pay for a modest room in an old landlady's house but also for food for the first little while. After moving out, Ava wondered how she would live. Going to college was out of the question. She had to pay rent and support herself. In a free newspaper from the supermarket, she scanned the job listings. There were many offers, but all of them required skills she didn't have. At random, she picked a phone number for a company that needed a cleaner. What else could a girl fresh out of high school do but scrub floors for a living? The HR department hired her on the spot. The office was filthy. Due to a particularly toxic work environment, cleaners never stayed long. After signing the contract, Ava got to work immediately. She entered a large open-plan office, filled with computers and employees, and began to diligently mop the floor. "What is that stench? I don't believe this." Ava flinched at the sharp shriek right next to her ear. The woman yelling was beautiful but had a venomous look about her. She had the kind of poisonous beauty of a movie villainess: sharp, dark eyebrows, almond-shaped, angry eyes, and hair the color of a raven's wing. Even the widow's peak in the center of her forehead was present. One look was enough to understand that this beauty was a nasty piece of work. Well? What are you staring at? Can't you smell that your mop stinks of rot? Go and rinse it with detergent now. The venomous beauty commanded imperiously. Walking past two young men sitting near the exit, Ava heard them whispering, evaluating her figure and other assets. Ava was a pretty girl herself, but unlike her adversary, her beauty was gentle and soft. She had kind features, large gray eyes, a high forehead, and full childlike lips. Her thick, light brown hair was pulled back into a messy ponytail with a simple terry cloth scrunchie. Even her old baggy clothes couldn't hide her slender waist and high chest. With her eyes cast down and a mop in her hand, she reminded the guys of a poor Cinderella being berated by one of the evil stepsisters. They shared these observations in hushed tones, so as not to be overheard by the office queen Marianna. It was she who had berated Ava, but the guys were mistaken if they thought Marianna couldn't hear them. The office queen had excellent hearing, a trait common to all malicious women who enjoy making trouble for others. Before Ava had even left the room, Marianna was already gleefully discussing every part of her poor, old wardrobe with her female colleagues. Ava wanted to break the mop over her knee and tell them all to go to hell, but the memory of her own dire situation stopped her. She rinsed the mop head, returned to the office, and started washing the floor again, ignoring the sneers of the female staff. Every day at work felt like poison. Marianna had managed to turn not only the employees against the new cleaner, but the management as well. Only one guy sympathized with her, the one who had called her Cinderella on their first meeting. One day he secretly waited for Ava outside the office, as her workday ended later than everyone else's. His name was Ethan, and he invited her to a cafe. They had a wonderful time. Ethan seemed like an open and kind person. But the next day, in one of the long office corridors, one of Marianne's friends approached her. "You idiot," the girl sneered. "Did you really think you could get with him? Ethan is Marianne's boyfriend. They're getting married. She'll destroy you if I tell her you went to a cafe with him. Marianne's about to become the head of the department. You'll have a fun time then." The next day brought an unpleasant surprise. When Ava walked into the department where Marianne worked, a song immediately started playing. "Hello, thrift store girl." Marianne herself, with a serious face, began to ask her at which flea market one could buy such a vintage sweater like Ava's. She called the worn-out shoes on the girl's feet a relic from a bygone era, and hobo boots, inventing ever more sophisticated insults for every item in the girl's wardrobe. The employees present politely chuckled at Marianne's cruel jokes, not wanting to argue with the vindictive careerist. Ethan never asked Ava to a cafe again. When they accidentally met in the corridor, the young man would shamefully hide his eyes and look away. He couldn't look the girl he liked so much in the eye. He was ashamed and disgusted with himself for his betrayal, for he had chuckled along with everyone else during the spectacle orchestrated by Marianne. He had long since fallen out of love with Marianne, but he didn't dare even hint that they should break up. Ethan liked his job, he was satisfied with his salary, and he didn't want to rock the boat by arguing with the future head of his department. People like Ethan are called opportunists. After the public humiliation of the cleaner who dared to compete for her fiancé, Marianne was as satisfied as a well-fed vampire. The office queen was so pleased with the public degradation of Ava that she even left the young cleaner in peace for a while. Ava's self-esteem, which had just begun to recover, was once again crushed by the harsh reality of her life. If she quit this job, she risked being left without a paycheck. When she had signed her employment contract, she hadn't read it. Later, when she went to HR to talk about quitting, they informed her that if she left before the specified period without working for at least 1 month, she risked not getting a penny. It was a pity to lose the money she had earned, so she had to stay. The money from her piggy bank was almost all gone. Moreover, Ava was now caring for a small pet. She couldn't leave Martin hungry. The little white kitten had somehow miraculously made its way into the office. Ava had to hide him from the vicious Marianne until the end of the working day. A kind soul, she couldn't leave the helpless 1-month-old kitten on the street. She took him home. The kind old lady in one of whose rooms Ava lived was not at all against a cat. Ava named the kitten Martin, and when she had almost no money left, she shared her last bit of kefir with her pet. The long-awaited payday coincided with the day the big boss intended to visit the office. He was the head of the entire network of branches and enterprises. Everyone was afraid of the boss except for Marianne. She had managed to worm her way into the trust of the former military man. The chief liked her sharp mind, predatory beauty, courage and audacity. When the boss was making his rounds, he made sure to visit the department of his favorite. Seeing him, Marianne stood up from her seat and hurried to meet him, accidentally knocking over a half-drunk coffee from the armrest of her massive computer chair with her elbow. The remnants of the coffee spilled from the silently falling paper cup. Quickly kicking the dirty cup under the table, Marianne beamed a welcoming smile and approached her boss. "Mr. Harrison, what a surprise. We've missed you." Marianne skillfully pursed her beautifully outlined lips, as if she wanted to kiss the chief. Then she shot a vengeful glance at Ava, who was wiping a photocopier with a cloth, and continued. "Although, we haven't been bored here. HR hires God knows who. The new cleaner does a terrible job. We have to sit in a pigsty." Marianna gently took the chief's arm and led him to her workspace, pointing a finger at the stain left by the spilled coffee. With feigned anger, Marianna nodded towards Ava. "See? Do you see how our cleaner cleans? She ignores my workspace altogether. It's always dusty and dirty here." Mr. Harrison frowned. He was not an old man, imposing, well-built, with a military bearing. Marianna knew very well that the pedantic chief disliked disorder, so she decided to frame the upstart she considered her rival. "Come to my office," the boss said dryly to Ava as he left. His tone did not bode well. "Why is the office in such a mess? Why are you performing your duties so poorly?" The chief carefully examined the flushed face of the embarrassed girl. "It was clean. I don't know where the stain and the dirt came from," Ava managed to stammer. "It's just that they don't like me in the office. Marianne is always picking on me. She probably spilled the coffee on purpose. She just wants you to fire me," the girl suddenly blurted out, emboldened before her boss. Mr. Harrison thoughtfully tapped the cap of his pen on the table. "You seem like a nice girl. Why is there such animosity towards you from the office workers?" "I don't know. And who are you? Please introduce yourself." Ava gave her first and last name. Hearing Ava's rather rare and unusual surname, the chief became agitated. "And your middle name? What was your father's name?" Ava lowered her head but then proudly raised it again. "My father's name was George. He was killed." But the boss interrupted her, continuing for her. "In Afghanistan. He was my friend. The captain was killed after being mortally wounded, and he saved me by pulling me out of the line of fire." He then fell into a long thought. Ava stood opposite him, shifting from foot to foot. The silence dragged on. "So that's it. You say Marianna has been hazing you in the office? We'll sort this out. Go and work for now. Tomorrow I'll have them hire another cleaner. It's not right for a hero's daughter to be scrubbing floors. You'll go to school. Is your mother alive?" Ava shook her head. "It's been a long time." "So you're an orphan?" The girl nodded affirmatively. "Do you have a place to live?" Ava shrugged. "I was living with my aunt. Now I'm renting a room." The chief clenched his hand on the table into a fist so tight that his knuckles turned white. "We'll sort this out." That day, Ava ran to her rented apartment, not feeling her feet from happiness. Her first salary, and even more than a generous bonus. Running into a pet store, she bought a lot of cat pate for Martin. Seeing a toy for kittens, she bought it too. That day she was very proud of herself. She had become a real provider. She could feed both herself and her kitten. And the greatest happiness, the chief had fired the nasty Marianna who had made Ava's life so miserable that very day. Now no one would humiliate and mock her old, ugly clothes. Although now she could very well buy herself something new. After feeding Martin, the girl ran to buy new clothes. But the next day was even more wonderful. Arriving at the office, Ava was surprised to see an unfamiliar elderly woman washing the floors. The HR manager approached her, unusually fawning and obsequious. He brought a new contract. She had been hired as a client-facing operator. In the afternoon, the chief arrived. He again invited Ava to his office, where he handed her a set of keys. The keys to my second apartment. I once bought this apartment for my future children, but I haven't had any yet. Live there. It's not right for my friend's daughter to be moving from one rented room to another. Oh, but I have a kitten. Can I take him there? I can't go anywhere without my Martin, Ava declared. Mr. Harrison laughed heartily. You can move in with an alligator for all I care. The apartment has been empty for a long time. You and your kitten will be the masters there. After collecting her things and Martin, Ava warmly said goodbye to the old lady from whom she had been renting a room and moved into a spacious 3-bedroom apartment. After the move, Ava didn't just walk to work. She flew. Although she was listed as a simple operator, she hardly did any calls. The chief treated his friend's daughter like his own child. He bought her new clothes, bought appliances for the apartment where she lived, and began to introduce her to the company's business. The childless veteran saw his successor in Ava. He wanted Ava to be able to replace him in all areas concerning the work of the network of offices and enterprises if something happened to him. It was only Aunt Carol who constantly insisted that there was no money for education. The friend of Ava's late father insisted on her enrolling in the university's economics department. Watching the transformations in the appearance and behavior of the former cleaner, and the management's attitude towards her, Ethan immediately found the courage to tell Marianna that their relationship had run its course. He didn't hurt Marianna with this statement at all. The girl had long considered him a dead-end weakling, trying to curry favor with her boss's son at her new job. Having received his freedom from the former office queen, the opportunist tried to mend his relationship with Ava, but the girl already knew his worth, so she refused his offer to go somewhere on the weekend. Ava refused him briefly and coldly, wondering with surprise how she could have ever liked such a cunning opportunist. He was left with nothing, needed by neither Marianna nor Ava. How could I have ever suffered for him, cried over his betrayal, when he beckoned me and then switched to Marianna? Where were my eyes? What could be attractive in a person like Ethan? Perhaps only a pretty cloyingly sweet, marmalade-like face. And I suffered from unrequited love, even cried, blaming myself for my past short-sightedness. One day while buying food for Martin at the pet store, Ava knocked one of the cans of pâté off the shelf. A strong hand deftly caught the can before it hit the floor. You don't skimp on your cats. You buy good food, the tall, unfamiliar young man said, placing the can back on the shelf and nodding approvingly at the bag of cat food in Ava's hands. I try. I love him. Ava was a little flustered, amazed by the young man's dexterity and quick reaction. I love my cat too. He's a Savannah. What breed is yours? The young man inquired. Mine is also a purebred. American Shorthair, the girl joked in response. He snuck into our office. I picked him up so one of the mean ladies wouldn't throw him out the window, so the cat stayed with me. I named him Martin. Ava suddenly opened up. Less than 10 minutes after they met, the young man and woman were chatting like old friends. Leo understood Ava's jokes, and Ava liked his openness and outlook on life, which he willingly shared with her. Unbeknownst to Ava, Leo walked her home. They stood for a long time near the entrance, talking about everything under the sun. They wanted to talk to each other. The young man and woman did not want to part at all, but it was already too dark outside. Ava thought it was indecent to show such obvious sympathy on the first day of their acquaintance, but Leo beat her to it, saying that he didn't want to leave, but propriety demanded it. He seemed to have read her mind. Climbing the stairs, Ava thought with surprise that it was all true. About the impulses, about the unity of souls, about finding your person. She spent the whole night sleepless, replaying in her head the plots of the romance novels she had read, where the heroes met their other half. In the morning, completely unrest, Ava got ready for work. For the first time in a long time, she didn't want to go. She wanted to run to the pet store to try to find Leo. In their conversation, they had even forgotten to exchange phone numbers. What was her surprise when, coming out of the entrance, she saw him. "You know I couldn't leave you. I just ran home to feed my cat and came back to your house. I watched your window all night." The young man pointed to the windows of the second floor where Ava lived. "And you didn't sleep either. I saw the light on in your bedroom all night. It's fate, you see. It was predestined. You're mine and I'm yours. Period," Leo said, pulling the girl towards him and greedily inhaling the scent of her hair. If you enjoyed the story, please support me with a thumbs up. And to be notified of new interesting stories, hit the bell icon when you subscribe. All the best to you.